All right, good afternoon. I'm Aaron Heiser of Maker's Leather Supply, and this is the first video of the year 2020. I will say this, I kind of promised myself that in this year I would put out 2 videos a week, and here we are at the end of the second week, which means I am already 4 videos behind. Yeah, welcome to my life. So I wanted to do a fun video today, and I wanted to do some tooling, and I wanted to tool that right there. When I was doing custom leather work, this was always my most popular pattern. It's the skull and spider web. I'm going to see if there's a way I can put this on our website as like a free download. When I was doing custom leather work for folks, I tooled this one thing more times than I care to count, but it's still fun for me to tool every single time. I just really enjoy this pattern. It's a fun one to teach, it's a fun one to do, and it always looks totally badass when it's done. So, without further ado, what I'm actually tooling this on is one of our newest templates. It was in last month's mystery box. This is the vertical card wallet. I've got one in my pocket here. Real simple wallet, 2 cards on each side. Yeah, that's it. But I scaled this pattern down. That's the other cool thing about this. Like, you can make this pattern fit all kinds of stuff. Scaled it down so it'll fit this. I went ahead and applied it to the piece of leather we're going to use, but I also still need to do some things like drawing border lines and stuff like that I wanted to do on the video. So I'm going to take my tape, and I'm going to move the camera down where you can see my work, because you don't need to see my pretty face, you need to see my work. So this tape is Scotch brand shipping tape. Okay, not packing tape, but shipping tape. I use it on all my toolings because I feel like it does the best job of sticking to the leather, but it doesn't leave a residue when you pull it back off. And that's a very important thing to me because I don't always line every single thing. However, if I had sticky tape residue on the back of something, I would definitely need to line it. So, I'm just going to put that on the back right there. See how that says do not use? That's for the shipping department. Don't use my special tape on all these boxes. We use a much more economical brand of tape for all of our shipping boxes. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut the excess tape off, because any place that wraps around and gets on the face of my tooling leather, it will leave enough of a residue that if I decided to dye or antique this, there would be a light spot there, and nobody likes that. So I'm going to grab my wing dividers here. This is a pair of our CS Osborne 6-inch wing dividers. These things are pretty handy. And I'm just going to draw me a rectangle around all this, and I'm going to make it even with the line on the face of the pattern. Right there beside his nose, you can see there's a little bit of a line there where the pattern stops, and I'm going to make the border equal to that on all sides. So I got my sizing down. I got to clamp these things down so that they stay right there. And draw my line. All right, and I'm just going to draw that line all the way around, and later we'll cut that with our swivel knife. Actually, it'll be one of the first things that we cut with our swivel knife, because you should always cut your border first. All right, so I drew that line. It's real light. It's hard to see unless I zoom it in for you there, but there it is. So I'm going to take my swivel knife, and I am going to first cut out that line, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do on the skull and what order we're going to cut things on in. I know some people struggle with long straight lines with a swivel knife. One of the pointers I can give you is my pinky down here is actually running right along the edge of the leather, and that helps me keep it right in line with where it needs to be. It's my guide, if you will. One of the reasons I'm making this particular video right now is we had a discussion on Facebook this morning. A fellow was using one of our templates and he was concerned on using 4 to 5 ounce leather for a wallet back. He thought it might be too thin, and so yeah, this is 4 to 5 ounce leather here, and we're going to get all kinds of mad crazy depth on this, and it's still going to look awesome. Okay, now I'm going to see if I can get this thing in here closer, and I want to make it to where we can see the details of the skull as I carve it, because there's some basic rules we need to follow when we're tooling something like this, especially when we're cutting and beveling. All right, now when you look at this skull, I know I can see it on my computer. I hope you can on the video. You have to look at this skull as it's a 3D object, because when you're done, it's going to be a 3D object. So what you have to decide is, on this 3D object, what is closest to you and what's furthest away in the background. Like right now, the spider web obviously is furthest away in the background, so we're not even worried about it yet. But on this skull, since I've done it a billion times, I know which lines I think are closest to me. Let me get a stylus and I'll point them out. So this line right here that goes around the eye, I'm going to say that that is the closest, the highest point of the skull. So I want to cut it first with my swivel knife. All right. So I'll take my swivel knife and I'm going to cut that line. I'm probably cutting about a half the depth of this leather. Now, ordinarily, if I'm tooling anything thinner than, say, 6 ounces or so, you can use a piece of picture frame matting, just that real thick cardboard stuff that they make picture frames mattings out of. I get it by the sheet at a Hobby Lobby for like $9, and a sheet is massive, but I currently don't have a single piece of it left, so I can't use it. What it'll do is it'll actually allow you to tool deeper into the leather. I know that sounds weird, but for some reason it works. A lot of guys use a lot of different things. Bob Beard teaches using x-ray film or x-ray paper or something like that. I don't know where to get that stuff, but I know where to get picture frame matting. So, all right, so after I've done that line, the next one I'm going to do is the next eye line all the way down to his cheekbone here. Okay? So I'm going to cut it out. I know my hands are in the way. I wonder if I can angle myself a little better for you. I bought a gimbal thing where somebody could actually hold the camera while I do this, but I haven't actually gotten it out to use it. So, and when we're open for business, I can't have a dedicated cameraman because somebody's got to stop people at the door and talk to them. All right, so there's that second line. After that, I go down to the cheekbone. I cut it out just like that. Okay, so after that, everything else on the skull is pretty much on the same level. There's that little hole for his nose there. There's his jawline, his mouth with his teeth. We'll do a lot of special things with his teeth in a second, and then just the top of his skull. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut out the rest of those lines in no particular order, but I'm not going to do the teeth because we need to do a lot of talking about teeth. So let me go ahead, strop my swivel knife, and so now we're going to just go to town on the rest of his pretty skull face here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cut out his little nose hole. And there's also a bullet hole in his skull. I'll go ahead and cut that one out too. And again, I'm going to research tonight. I want to find a way I can give up this pattern on the website just as a paper, a PDF type download. And yeah, see how many people we can get out there tooling this fun little skull. All right, so I said we'd get to the teeth, and we're almost there. one of the biggest things I've learned about skulls is if you can do really cool teeth, then the rest of it really doesn't even matter. But if your teeth just look flat and boring, it just won't look like a cool skull. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. So I've put a lot of time and effort into making teeth look right, and I'll show you everything I do to do that. I've got a little notebook over here with this pattern tooled on it. So there it is. Like right now, very flat, unimpressive. Right here, totally 3D, totally badass. So, yeah. So we're going to do a lot of work with the teeth to make them look very 3D-like, okay? Now, but first I have to swivel cut them. I'm going to go ahead and cut the inside of the mouthpiece here, just where it goes up to like the cheek and stuff. All right, now, when it comes to the teeth, once again, I try to look at it and decide, okay, which teeth are on top of which teeth and things like that. A lot of that really is going to come out to your tracing as to which ones end up on top of which ones. Sorry, I kind of like changed the focus of the camera there. So anyway, a lot of it will end up, you know, depending on how you traced it out and everything, some of them will look like they're on top of others. But on this one, I'm just going to say, okay, like this one's my highest one. I'm not cutting the teeth deep at all. There's not a lot of space in between the teeth, so you don't need to cut deep lines on the sides, but I will cut it a little bit deeper on the bottom where it goes into an open mouth. All right. So there it is. What are we focusing on? There we go. This thing changes focus so quickly, I don't always know what it's focusing on. All right. So now I'm going to go to another tooth that I know is kind of behind that tooth and do it. And then I'll do the other one that's next to it. And then they just kind of fall in place, just like the teeth in your mouth. For the most part, as they go towards the back of your mouth, they're probably behind the tooth that's next to them. All right. And when we're done swivel cutting these teeth, I'm going to start in on the spider web, but I'm not going to make you watch me swivel in the entire spider web because, well, this isn't supposed to be one of the hour-long videos. This one should be a little bit shorter and more fun, not as tedious, because tooling is fun. Janie Sue's sitting behind the camera, and I didn't have to look up to know that when I said tooling is fun, she probably rolled her eyes a little.
She did.
It has been confirmed. She's not much on tooling. And the good news is these teeth don't have to look all symmetrical and stuff, because, you know, this skull, he probably had him a rough life, you know, and his teeth probably aren't all pearly whites and all that stuff. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure he didn't have a very good dental plan, especially when I'm done with him. All right, so there we go. The skull is swivel cut in. Now we got all this spider web over here to cut in. All right, and again, I'll start it here. First, I'm going to re-wet my leather. I'm just using a spray bottle, okay, and I'm going to give it a spray, and there we go. That's all I'm going to do to maintain its dampness. Now, at the very beginning of the video, before the video started, I did spray it a good bit. Not enough to soak it, but definitely enough to get it covered in water. And then I let it set for about 5 minutes before I started the video. Should have got me a paper towel out, huh? So anyway, strap up my swivel knife one more time here, and I'll do the outside of the spider web here. When I cut the spider web, I'm going to cut it pretty hard because it's all border stuff. It's all like behind it is just background. So I'm not sure why my phone keeps vibrating, but Janie's laughing every time, so. Alright, so we're going to continue cutting the spider web out just like that. And I'm going to pause the video. When I come back, we'll have that cut out. Alright, so here we go. Again, I swivel cut the entire spider web and the skull there. Alright, so next it is time to do some beveling. Alright, first and foremost, you always bevel your border first. Let me find, on the border, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to use my Berry King push beveler, because I could just sit and bevel this entire thing, but this will take a lot, it'll go a lot faster. And you can see how cool of a tool that is. So, Berry King push beveler. There's one line. I didn't used to like this tool. I had a hard time controlling it. But the more I practiced with it, the more I really like it. On especially on all the long, straight bevels. I don't use it very much on anything other than borders and things like that. I know, like Don Gonzalez, he and I have had a long talk about these, and he uses them for a lot more than I do. He'll even use it in his floral and stuff like that to kind of speed up the process. It's kind of like using a modeling spoon, but I think I can push down harder on this than I can a modeling spoon, because I like deep, deep bevels. All right, so the border is done first. Okay, just about everything you ever tool, the border will have to go first. That's just, again, one of the rules. Who would have thought we'd have rules, right? Okay, putting my swivel knife away because we're done with it for quite a while now. Now, when we go to bevel this, we're going to bevel it pretty much in the same order that we swivel cut it, which means that one line right here is where we're going to start beveling. All right, what I have here, these are some Bevelers made by Clay Miller. Regular Bevelers will work too. You don't have to have fancy custom ones, but I do. I had Clay make me a whole set of tools, and Barry has the same type thing, Berry King, but I wanted all of my checkering to match. So my bevelers and my backgrounders and my pear shaders, all of the checkering on the tools match. And I really like checkered tools over smooth ones, because to me, they give the illusion of more depth. So, grab my tooling maul here, and I've got kind of a medium-sized beveler or a small-sized beveler. It's about 1/8 of an inch wide. And I'm going to start beveling that line. So I'm going to start up here. Work my way down and around that eyebrow there. The maul that I'm currently using is also made by Clay Miller. This one's an 18-ounce maul, and I like the ones with the tapered heads as opposed to the straight heads, just because I'm lazy and I want to keep my elbow on the ground. So that's the reasoning behind that. So there we go. That eye is good and beveled. It's already starting to look pretty cool because of the shading that it creates. This is a piece of Herman oak leather that I'm using today. Again, it's 4 to 5 ounce, just regular tooling leather. So yeah. All right, so just like I cut them out, I'm going to bevel the next eye line next. And so here we go. And I've got all kinds of crazy bevelers that have like concave and convex surfaces to them. Like, there you go. That beveler is round on the beveling tip here, as opposed to a similar sized one that is square. Okay, so the round one would help a lot in these little areas right here, but it's not a necessity. These tools are amazing to have. Don't get me wrong. You got an extra couple of bucks, you want a new tool they're great to have, but they're not a necessity. Don't think that you can't tool things like this if you don't have all these crazy special tools. Okay? All right, now out here where the side of the skull meets the background, I'm going to bevel it a little bit harder, and I'm going to use a little bit bigger of a beveler just because it's a big wide open area. Usually if you're in a big area, it's smart to use the biggest beveler you can get away with. You'll have cleaner lines since you're hitting it, and you're hitting it more often in the same areas. Because no matter which size beveler I'm using, I'm still moving it the same little millimeter in between hits. But if it takes, 4 hits to get across an area, then that tool is spread out over those 4 hits as opposed to the little bitty one. And I'm sure that doesn't make any sense, but I'm sorry. Sometimes I have a hard time explaining myself on things. Okay, so there we go. That one was beveled to the outside of the line. All right, and now we're going to come under here and do under the cheekbone, and again we'll do it on the outside of the line. Okay, so I'm going to start right up here at the end. I'm going to bevel lightly at the very end of it because those two bones fade in together. Okay, so we're going to start out lightly out here at the end, and then we're going to get heavier as we move away from it. And then once we get over the background, the spider web portion, we're just going to bevel pretty hard. Let me pause this while that phone rings. Just 1 second. Alright, had to take care of a phone call, and it has been taken care of by the lovely Janie Sue. Alright, so we beveled all that around the eye. Now once again we have to just bevel the jaw and the top of the head. I'm going to use a 3/8 inch beveler and bevel that out right quick. Lucy's in the shop with us today, and she's scratching at the door letting us know that she needs to go potty, so we'll be taking another break in just a moment. It's supposed to be a bad storm come through today, so we brought all the dogs to work. Hang on, Lou. Alright, so there's what we're looking at. His face outline is done around the eye and the cheekbones and the bottom of the chin. I'll grab a small beveler again. I'll do the bullet hole and the nose hole, and then we'll move on to some teeth and mouth. It's my smallest beveler. It's pretty tiny. It's a little bit less than an 1/8, maybe a 1/16. I don't know. It's pretty small. So when I'm not using my special concave and convex bevelers, this is usually the one that I'm going to. If you don't have a tiny beveler, but maybe you have an extra Tandy beveler, grind it down. Just shave some of it off. One thing I learned when I was working with Clay Miller is that, it's okay to modify a tool if you need to, as long as you don't need that tool again in the way that it used to be. Alright, and I'll bevel the nose hole to the inside as well as that bullet hole I just did. Alright, there he is. We're going to get on to the teeth. I'll do this little inside of the mouth here. And then again, we're going to pause and talk about teeth for just a second. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and bevel across the tops and the bottoms of the teeth here, just where it's on the inside of the mouth. But I'm not going to do where the teeth connect to each other or to the gum line yet. Alright, so it used to be, I did my teeth just like that, and I thought, man, I got a cool skull. And I had an okay skull, but I didn't have a really cool skull yet. So, what we've got to do, we've got to look at the fact that on a real skull, these teeth go up into the skull, or down into the jaw there, okay? But then also, in between the teeth, the skull part goes down and, down and in between the teeth. All right, and I'm going to refer to this as the gums a lot, just so we don't get so, confused as to which parts we're talking about. We'll pretend he has gums. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to take a tiny little triangle beveler and I'm going to push down in between each of those teeth. Okay, just right there where they meet the gum line, just push down right in between them. I'll do a little test and see if I even need to bevel it. I may just push it. Or, hit it with my maul, or just push it. Yeah, and I'm just going to push it. It's a tiny little triangle-shaped beveler. This one is I'll try to get it to focus on it here. Bring everything up to the same level. There we go. So, tiny little triangle-shaped beveler. Every tool maker, to include craft tool, has one of these. And I'm just going to push it up in between the teeth. And it's going to make just such a subtle little difference. But already we can see that it's a little bit better than it was. And I'll push this up closer to the camera again. Okay. So, again, I took it, and let me get where I can see this and the camera can see it too. And I put it in between each of the teeth where the gums are, and I just pushed it down. You can use a modeling spoon even if you don't have this. You can use the end of a nail if you want. Just anything pointy that's going to get in there. Stylus, something like that. Okay? Now, to make the teeth look like they go up under the gums, two different things we can use. Well, there's several different things you can use. I will show you two different tools that I use as soon as I find them in my toolbox. Where are my lifters? I made a new toolbox for myself, and so I'm having a hard time finding some of my tools now. Alright, so this is a lifter, used a lot in floral patterns, that when you hit it, it goes up under the curvature of a petal or something and kind of lifts it up. And you can take that, put it right there at the top of each of those teeth and give it a tap. And what it'll do is push down the tooth and slide up under the gum a little bit to lift it. Okay, now I did two teeth and I'll show them to you. Okay. These two right here. Now that's one way to do it, and it's a good way, don't get me wrong, but I prefer this one right here. This is a lifting tool made by Ed LeBaire. I know Barry King makes a set. I know Ed LeBaire still makes sets. Clay Miller makes sets. If you can afford them, Bob Beard makes sets. But this is, matter of fact, I'm pretty sure Tandy has one, but if you get that one, you need to kind of polish it up and make it work right. But anyway, I'm going to strop it a little bit so it's nice and slick on the bottom. And I'm going to take it, I'm going to push under those gums and lift them up a little bit. And it's going to give it even more of a 3D texture and appearance than just the lifter that you hit with a maul. Okay? You don't have to do it hard. You're not trying to, these things are really, this one's kind of sharp and it would cut through the leather if I wanted it to. But there we go. Now I've done all those teeth, and you can actually, if I can get it to focus on it, maybe if I could hold it still and not shake so much. All right. So you can actually see where it goes up under there. And it's a very, very subtle little thing to do for this tooling, but it makes a world of difference in the finished product. Okay. So there we go, top and bottom. And now he's looking a lot cooler. So next is my favorite parts, which is backgrounding and shading on the skull itself. I am going to take my spray bottle, light spray with water there. Okay, I'm going to put all my bevelers up in my toolbox so I don't lose them. And we're going to move on to the backgrounding and lifting. All right. Or sorry, backgrounding and pair shading. What was I thinking? So, I have two background tools that I like to use. These were made for me by Clay Miller, but what I did is I took the craft tool A98, which is a little teardrop shaped backgrounder, and I asked Clay to make me a full set of them. So I have 6 different sizes of a very similar tool to fit in all different kinds of things that all have the same checkering on them, and they're just flat matting tools. But I will show you the difference it makes. I'm going to do the little bullet hole here. Look at it before. And then look at it now. You notice it's considerably darker. It has the appearance that it's a lot deeper, even though it's not actually deeper. It's just got a lot more burnish to it now. Okay. So when I'm using this tool, one thing I learned, it's teardrop shaped. Okay, and one thing I've learned is I used to think that if I walked it with the pointy end going forward, then I would leave less tool marks, but it's actually the exact opposite. And if I will walk it with the pointy end coming trailing, then I do a better job of leaving less tool marks. So I'm going to go, the first thing I'll do is I'm going around the inside of his eye with it, kind of bordering it, if you will. And then I'll go all the way through the middle and do all the rest of it. But I like to do the border part first so that I can get it nice and deep right there along the edge. And I do have larger ones of these, but again, I'm trying to prove to you that you don't need 50 million tools to do this pattern. So now I'm just going back and forth, and I'm going to go all the way across his eye. And it does take some time to be able to use this tool and keep it nice and smooth like that. And as a matter of fact, I see a couple of spots I'd like to work on real quick. All right, do the same thing to his nose. And now we're going to do the same thing inside of his mouth. Okay, so in between all of those teeth, we're going to use our little shading tool and depress all of that. So, with every step, he's looking a little bit cooler. All right, I'm done with the shading tools now, so I'm going to put them away. And sorry, those are the backgrounding tools, the matting tools. And now I'm going to grab my pair shaders because they're next. I'm going to use this one the most. Again, the checkering matches everything else I've done. I asked Clay Miller to make these two bevelers for me. And one thing sorry, not bevelers, but pair shaders. One thing I really like about them is they're extra domed, okay? And I've taken some old craft tool ones and taken them to a file and kind of knocked the corners down and domed them more just like this. But I had him do it for me so that they would match my bevelers as far as the checkering and the texture that's on them, okay? Now, my general rule of thumb is that I'm going to just follow the curvatures here. And I'm going to first hit it right up here in the eyebrow, like that. Okay, left a little bit of shading. Now when you're using a pear shader, you don't want to see the pear. You know, if you just hit it once, then you've got a pear there. Good job. Now you see a pear. You want to, I always start out light. I move it just a little bit and maybe even turn it as I'm going to get a wider impression. And then you get heavy towards the middle with your hitting, and then you end up light again. And that way it fades in, it fades out. Okay? So, like that. Take care of that little corner there. Alright, so there's what we're looking at so far. Now, down here on the cheekbone, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start out with the point of it up high, almost at his the side of his eye. I'm going to start hitting it. I'm going to bring it down around that cheekbone, and look how easy that was. Gives it a lot of shade, a lot of texture, and a lot of depth. Okay? Now, same thing again there. I'm going to walk it all the way under his eye there. Okay? Now I'm going to take my pear shader and I'm going to lean it back. I'm going to put the fattest part of it right up against the bottom of his cheekbone there, and I'm just going to kind of shade that area a little bit. Okay? Once again, it gives it depth, it gives it texture, it gives it some class. Alright, now right here where the jawbone gets fat, I'm going to do a little bit of work. Now, the only other thing I'm going to do here in this area is where those teeth are. If you felt of your gums up above your teeth and below your teeth, you'll feel indentions. And so I like to take, I've got a smaller pear shader here, and I like to take it and run it in between the teeth and away from them. Like that. Okay, and it really adds some texture to the teeth area. And then I'll do the same thing on the bottom, but not as much, because that little indentation doesn't, it goes all the way up to your nose, but it doesn't go all the way down to the bottom of your chin. So there we go. Right around his mouth, we've got lots of texture now. Looking pretty cool. Now, last thing I normally do with one of these, with any of the tools, is I will take my biggest pear shader I've got, and I'm just going to do a little bit up there in the top of the skull, just to, because that's such a big open area right there. It probably doesn't really need it, but to me it's such a big open area when we have all this texture and stuff down here. It just needs a little something, you know. Okay, now the tooling is done on the skull, okay, but we've got a little bit of work left to do as far as the decorative swivel cuts. Alright, now I hate decorative swivel cuts when it comes to floral, but I absolutely love them when it comes to figure carving or skulls or flames or whatever. Part of that is because I don't have the grace that it takes to do floral very well. I do okay floral, but it's just not my forte. But I do love, again, doing it on the skulls and stuff, because I find that I can do really nice accents on this. So what I'm going to do is, once again, just like the pear shader, I'm going to follow a lot of the curvature of what's going on already. And just like the pear shader, I'll start out light, I'll get really heavy in the turn, and then I'll end up light again. Okay, so light, really heavy down in the turn, and then light again. And I did that right there on his cheekbone, right there. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on that part of the cheekbone. I'll do it down here on the jaw, I'll do it down here at the bottom of the chin, I'll do it on the eyelash, eyebrow area some, and I'll do it up here on the top of the skull, and then we'll see if it needs any more after that. So, from light to heavy to light again. With the skull, it's you know, you can make really bold cuts, and they really look nice. There we go. Just adding a few cuts really changes some things on there. Okay, I'm gonna add one of the things I like to do when I think I'm done with a piece. I like to take a picture of it, and when I look at the picture, whatever I'm missing instantly stands out to me. So here we are. Here we are about done here, but when I looked at the camera, I was like, there's some more stuff that can be done. So I'm gonna add another little cut right there underneath his eye, and I'm gonna add one right here on the side of his nose. And Lucy's about to go nuts over here, so someone's either outside or I need to take her out. So be right back. All right, now we have done the skull. It's done. I could add a little bit of swiveled cut texture around the teeth if I wanted to. I've done that before. As a matter of fact, on this one, I just did some teeny tiny little cuts in between each of the teeth. But this skull is a little bit smaller than that one, and so I'm just not too sure that it's very necessary. So I'll leave that alone. So what we need to do now is we need to bevel out our spider web. Okay, I've got a couple of large bevelers here, and I'm just going to bevel. And all I'm going to do on the video here is I'm going to bevel like a couple of these squares, I'll call them. And then I'm going to use a matting tool. I don't use it very often. This is one of Bob Beard's matting tools, and I don't remember what it's called, but I remember it has something to do with arteries. If I can get the thing to focus on it. And once I put it on leather, it'll focus better, I guess. So anyway, let me bevel a little of this out, and we'll use that matting tool. And it's a pretty cool little effect. And again, I'm just going to bevel out one of these little squares or two of these little squares, and then we'll use that tool in there. Alright, so there's one little square, and I'll do one more. There's lots of different matting tools that you can use inside this. I mean, I could use the same one I used in the eyes and stuff like that, but cool textures can be a lot of fun, so we're going to play with them. Alright, now this little tool, it's a set of 3 tools, and one of them is the little teardrop shape. And I'm going to use it first because I want to get up into the corners of the web, and then I'll do the main body of that area. But if I don't do up in the corners, then it'll look like I skipped that area. So when you're using a matting tool, almost any matting tool, you want the pattern to look random for many of them, the ones with textures at least. So when I hit it, I'm going to rotate it ever so slightly in between hits so that the pattern looks a lot more random. And then there you go. There's what that tool looks like. Again, it kind of looks like arteries or something. Let's see if I can get the daggum thing to focus on it. Don't know why it's not. There we go. Alright. So I will get up into those corners a little bit better because as I was showing it to the camera, I could tell that we needed a little bit of work there. Yeah, now I'll do the one underneath that. I bought these tools a couple of years ago, and I've only used them once or twice. Because being that specific design, it's like, well, what all do you use that on? But for a skull and spider web, the arterial look is okay, I guess. Alright, so there you go. I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to bevel the entire rest of this, and then I'm going to do the backgrounding on the rest of it to include. I will fade out the background as I come out this way so that it fades out and it doesn't just have like a row of tools and then stop. As a matter of fact, let me do a tiny bit of that just to show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so up against the top of the web, I'm going to hit that thing. And again, I'm slightly rotating it every time I hit it so that it doesn't look like it's the same thing over and over. Alright, but what I also did is I leaned it back so that it fades from being, you know, lots of texture out into nothing. And then out here, I'm going to take and just lightly hit it and continue that fade into nothingness. And you get a good effect if I can get it to focus. There it goes. Come on, buddy, you had it. There it is. And it went away again. I got to figure out what makes this thing tick. All right. So, I know it faded in and out enough that you got to see it. So again, I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to do the rest of this. And if you want to see what it looks like when it's done, check out our very next video where we'll actually be building the vertical card wallet that I showed at the very beginning of this video. So, yeah. So until then, again, I'm Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply. Thank you for watching. Feel free, please, to subscribe to our channel if you like our videos and you want to learn more leathercraft stuff. Thank you very much. Have a great day.